Welcome to Georgia Highlands College Math 97 and Math 99 video tutorials. In this video segment, we'll be answering the question, how do you subtract rational expressions with opposite denominators? Now, we have already been through the video on how to add rational expressions with opposite denominators. So it's just about the same process all the way through until you get down to the last step, which is you're going to be following the steps to subtract rational expressions instead of adding them. So you're going to start by putting all your numerators and denominators in standard form, which is in descending order by exponent of the variable. And then you're going to multiply the rational expression, so one of the terms whose denominator has the negative leading term, you're going to multiply that by the clever form of 1, which is -1 over -1, which will change the signs of all the terms in the rational expression. And then you're going to follow steps for subtracting rational expressions with a common denominator. So let's go ahead and take a look at our example. We have 7x minus x squared over x squared minus 2x minus 9. And we are subtracting the rational expression 5x minus 3x squared over 9 plus 2x minus x squared. Well, we have a lot of things that are not in standard form here, so that is our first step, is to get everything in standard form. So our first term, the numerator, to have it in standard form, it should be negative x squared plus 7x over, well, we have standard form in the denominator already, so we'll just leave it that way. The numerator of the second rational expression, to be in standard form, we would need to flip-flop those terms, and that gives us negative 3x squared plus 5x, and we're going to divide that by negative x squared plus 2x plus 9. And hopefully bells and whistles are going off that you have opposite polynomials in your denominators. So we need to go ahead and move on to step 2 to change the signs of that second rational expression, that second term, by multiplying by our clever form of 1, which is -1 over -1. And just to remind you that -1 is going to distribute to both terms in the numerator, and the -1 will distribute to all 3 terms in the denominator, changing all those signs. So I'm just going to rewrite here and do that distribution. So our first expression, negative x squared plus 7x over x squared minus 2x minus 9. And our second term is now positive 3x squared minus 5x over positive x squared minus 2x minus 9. So we now have common denominators here. So now it's time to proceed with our steps for subtracting rational expressions with common denominators. So our first step in that particular process is to combine the numerators or subtract the numerators over the common denominator. And just to point out, we have this particular polynomial, negative x squared plus 7x, and we are subtracting this other binomial here, 3x squared minus 5x. And it's important to realize, you know, where your factors are, meaning that entire 3x squared minus 5x, so that you know that that -1, that understood -1, is going to get distributed to each of those terms behind the sign there. And that's put over our common denominator. So we have this understood -1 right here that is going to get distributed. And we just have a +1 here that would get distributed to both of those, which won't change anything about that first binomial. So putting this all together, we have negative x squared plus 7x minus 3x squared plus 5x. And that's all over our common denominator of x squared minus 2x minus 9. And now combining like terms, I see we have common terms. We have a 7x and a 5x. And we also have a negative x squared that can be combined with a negative 3x squared. So combining those terms, we get negative 4x squared plus 12x. And that's divided by x squared minus 2x minus 9. Now, we finish off these problems by factoring and seeing if they're common factors to divide out. However, the denominator here is actually prime. So we're not even going to be able to factor that. So we might as well not waste our time factoring the numerator because we're not going to be able to divide out common terms. But just to show you, if we were going to factor that denominator, x squared minus 2x minus 9, we would have to ask ourselves the question, what multiplies to make negative 9 but adds to make negative 2? And there are no factors of negative 9 that fit that bill. So we would call this particular trinomial prime because it cannot be factored. So we can't go any further with this answer here. So we end up with negative 4x squared plus 12x over x squared minus 2x minus 9. Now that answer might not feel very good to you, and they don't always feel good. So you just have to be confident in what you know and make sure you're very careful as you're going through these steps, because there's really no way to go back and check these because they're not equations. So hopefully this will help guide you into doing this process very carefully and just following through the steps. If you have any other questions about how to subtract rational expressions with opposite denominators, please make sure to contact your Highlands instructor. Thank you.